Welcome to Politics, Law, and Life. They say that justice is elusive and sometimes hard to find. Well, we're a family of lawyers, and seeking justice is not just our family's calling, it's our family's passion. I'm Lonnie Johnson. Along with my wife and family, we're exposing how politics, law, and everyday life intersect. We bring perspectives informed by politics, sharpened by the law, and refined by our individual life experiences. So join us in the discussion, Politics, Law, and Life, where every story finds its verdict. Welcome to another episode of Politics, Law, and Life, where every story finds its verdict. We're the Johnsons. I'm Lonnie Johnson.
I'm Antoy.
I'm Tiara.
I'm Antoine.
I'm Tiara.
And I'm Eartha. And if you like what you hear today, please subscribe.
As you know, each of our episodes deal with either politics, law, or life. Sometimes they tend to blend. Today we're going to talk about politics. And specifically, we have the midterm elections coming up. Some states are voting now in their primaries. Other states have theirs coming up throughout the year. And you hear this all the time, that this is the most consequential election of our lifetime. Well, I think this is the most consequential election of our lifetime. We're seeing so many traditions being destroyed, institutions being destroyed. The rule of law seems to be, almost non-existent in many cases. So this is a very important election. And so we're going to talk about the whole idea of voting, how do you find the right candidate? Now, we're in Texas, but we're going to talk about things that will sort of help guide us throughout every state of the union. So let's start with, anyone want to kick in? What do you consider when you're trying to determine who you should vote for?
I think more importantly about who I do consider, I think about what I don't think about. I don't think about party lines, whether it's Democrat or Republican, because I am personally a Democrat, but I have seen some really good Republican judges make moves that I stand behind. I think for policy issues, yes, you think about Democrat, Republican, but when it comes to the judicial system, it don't matter to me.
You know, it's more than two parties.
I get that too.
You got libertarians and the Green Party and the independents. So I think of the issue. Hey, let me see where you stand on what's important to me. I want to see that. How do you think about helping people out, helping the poor? What do you think about crime and how to fix crime? Not just crime, but how are you going to fix it? What's your plan? Let me see your platform. Lay it out to me. Is it believable? Do I really think you can accomplish it? And are you a good person? I mean, maybe I just don't like you because you're a nasty person.
I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Antoy. Going back to not just the person, just what you look at. In any situation, same as here, justice is blind. That's where it should be blind in our judicial system. Because I just look at Texas. In Texas, you can run for a judge and have never practiced that kind of law in your life. I'm sitting there, who does it? I remember some time ago, I was backing some people that were running for judge. And, they got elected, some of the people, and people called and said, the girl you recommended and didn't have any experience. And I'm sitting there like, huh? At that time, I had no idea that you could just run for judge and not have any background whatsoever. My mind doesn't even climb that high. There's no way I would have considered running for anything, especially a judge of a criminal court, and I've never practiced criminal law. I don't know what a petition looked like. I don't know what anything looks like, and you can do that. So I really do believe that we have to know better, and especially with the judicial system, and it's criminal. And when I think about criminal law, I think about doctors. I think about what I want a doctor to more or less have a surgery, a life-threatening surgery on me, and they never practiced. They don't even know what an instrument looked like that's in there. That's the same thing with judges. If those judges have never practiced, do you want them examining you? Do you want them, because it is life or death a lot of times. People actually get death penalties because of what judges do or their rulings or what they don't do. So I absolutely think that it has to be blind, or we can't think of color, we can't think of party line? Because when it's judges, I'm going for who's the best judge.
I think that's the consideration, but I think that sometimes the stances do matter. I think you're looking and tailoring that only to local and criminal, but let's look at some of the other judges that actually make long-term changes. Amy Comey Barrett, party or party affiliations have nothing to do, and that should be removed from the thought equation. The reality of the situation is some of that can work in some spaces, like you're looking at criminal. But if your philosophy is in some ways tied to an agenda, then you do need to look at that, and you need to look at who put them there. When we're looking at some of the things that are currently being repealed, like the attempt to the Voting Rights Act, all of these things are coming up, and they're coming up in front of judges. And I think that we do need to be more researched about who we have there. Yes, some things I can understand that not practicing, but I am also imploring us to look at where is your allegiance? Because as a judge, your allegiance should first be to the law, the letter of the law. And it means even if my party doesn't agree with the letter of the law, I have to follow the letter of the law. However, with that being said, if you see that the tie is closer to party than it is to justice, maybe you should move in different directions.
It's easier said than done, because everybody says that it has all these principles until it knocks on their front door. Then it's about loyalty and alliances. The same way they do with the Democrats and the Republicans, they get in line. They might not agree with what their leader is doing, but they're going to get in line and do it. Why? Because it serves them politically. And it happens over and over and over again. It's okay to speak out against somebody until it's your friend. It's okay to speak out against somebody until it's someone that's close to you. Then all of a sudden you need to be quiet. Don't say that. You say it's so important to educate people, and we need to tell people who's important, who we should vote for, where we should cast our vote. But let it not be someone that I don't want to lose, or someone that would reflect my personal situation negatively if I were to speak out. Oh no, don't say that. It will make life harder for me. And that's what we deal with. We deal with it locally, and we definitely deal with it in politics on a national level. And that's really what's sickening about it. The worst part of politics is the politicians. You either have people that are social engineers that really want to see things happen, which many of them are, or you have politicians. The politicians want a notch on them belt. Their identity is who they are. Their identity is their office. And they will do anything to kick that. They will get kicked out of office by the voters, that the voters have shown we do not want you. They will run again in a different area because now they just want to be that. And so many times people just stand idly by, complicit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, where do people go to get information to know if this person's on the side or not?
So, what it boils down to is people don't always do the research to figure out who they should vote for. It's horrible not to vote. It's even, I don't know, it's worse, or it's also horrible to vote for the wrong person because you didn't do the research. You don't know. And everyone can't research every client or every candidate. But there's some things we can do. Some things we can all agree that, there are certain people that you might want to disqualify as you go down your list. So what are some of the things that y'all see? I'll tell you one of mine. One of mine is people who run for a position and they have no history or background that would qualify them to do that. And that's whether, not just judges, but you have people running for, a controller, and they're horrible in math. I mean, no. Don't run for a position just because there's a vacancy and you think you can win it. Run for it because you have something in your background and history that would make you qualified to do this job.
I got one. It's James Baldwin quote I saw on this shirt that I'm going to get. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. So you the politician and you telling me all this good stuff, but what have your actions been lately? Even if you weren't a politician and you just an everyday citizen, but how were your actions before you decided to run for office? Now you telling me you're going to do all this stuff, but you weren't acting that way in the past.
Yeah.
I think that people should really just vote your conscience and your heart versus your allegiances. I think that that's in every level, from federal down to local. If you vote by what you think is right and wrong, the people that stand for what you think is right and wrong and eliminate all other interests, I think we make a much better electorate as a whole. It's a situation in which doing the research, being able to just Google someone's name and see what their history is like. what they've done, what they haven't done, what areas do they work in. If you Google someone's profile and it says that they've been doing math for all these years, but now they want to switch over to science, the question becomes why. You have to look at those things and scrutinize what people's motives are, because oftentimes people want the accolades without really being in a position to be able to do the work. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important to look at. My personal take is, if you're voting for someone, ask people that are in that field what their reputation is. Is this someone that's known for being fair? Is this someone that's known for being truthful? Those are things that you can do, little nuggets you can give yourself to kind of get a leg up. But one thing that I would shy away from, and then what I ask people not to do, don't vote for someone just because they look like you and they share the same skin color, because that doesn't always work. Don't vote for someone because they belong to the same sorority or fraternity that you do, because that oftentimes people get elevated to positions that they don't deserve because they have people around them that are willing to be yes men. And sometimes the reasons aren't because of their merit. So that's why I ask to put all personal things aside, all associations and affiliations, and just put all of that stuff aside. Vote your conscience, vote what people do, what they don't do, what their reputations are, and I think then we end up with a much stronger system.
So it got 200 people on the ballot. How am I possibly supposed to be informed on all 200 of those people?
Sometimes you have things like Houston Chronicle or different local newspapers that they'll go through and they'll actually interview people and endorse those people. So if you don't have time, find someone you can rely upon that source and say, I trust they'll give me what I need. Because you do have other people that are, they're partisan. So they're just going to go straight down whoever ran, you got the nomination. And I'm not the partisan person. I think that when it comes to just voting in general, you got to go for the right people. We got people now that you see that, you voted for them because they were sorority or because of whatever. And it turns out they're the worst person out there you could actually have. And it was for all the right reasons. You got to base it just on their credentials, how good they are, have they practiced in this area.
Now, it's a lot more difficult to do that kind of research on someone on a local level when you're talking about local elections and local politics. But when we talk about national, when we're talking Congress and Senate and those higher positions, most of the time you're dealing with incumbents, people that have already been in office for a while. So you can go and pull their voting records, see what issues they were silent on, see what issues they spoke up on, see if what positions that they took on things, and that will allow you to better gauge what they're going to do in the future. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, what someone is already doing. There's lots of people that work within their fields. They do the work that they're required to do. I went to a debate for a young man that was running for Congress. And I was watching the debate, and it was nice to see, because every time they asked a question about, hey, what will you do when you tackle this issue? What will you do about this issue? He immediately went to, well, a few years ago I did this. And he had specific examples of every single thing they asked what he would do when he got to Washington. And instead of making a bunch of promises of what he would do when he got there, he was able to draw back on history of him already having done that work. And that made it very easy to give his vote. That made it very easy to be happy with what he's doing, because I don't have to worry about him selling me a story. His record already proved what he had done. And because of that, it was comfortable going forward with the vote. But that's the type of research that I would encourage people to do. Look up online, watch debates as much as you can. They're very, very powerful when you can catch those. Social media is a lot. Most people have Instagrams, Facebooks, where you can go look them up. You can research their viewpoints on things, hear what they say. And oftentimes what they say won't match up with what they do. But if you're walking into a battle, like you said, where you know nothing about a candidate, being able to at least get how they try to present themselves will give you some sort of information of the type of person that they are and what type of candidate they might ultimately make.
And I like the endorsement thing too, because there are a lot of organizations that, and you can find some organizations that you agree with, that you look at their track record, who they endorsed in the past, and not just one. Maybe it's not the Houston Chronicle. Maybe it's I won't name. Maybe it's certain unions. But find people that you can trust, and then look at their endorsement. If you can, look at everybody's individual records, but also be mindful. Know the people that are behind that organization. We had an episode where an organization called themselves by a certain name where people would think that they were somebody else, and they did endorsements of their candidates, thinking, "Oh, we don't," and that organization they were trying to mock had to go to court to say, "No, they're not us," and trying to be
Trying
careful,
to trick and confuse.
right? And so people will do that. So find an organization that you know who they are, and you trust their judgment, you trust their recommendation, and then follow that. But the informed voter is always the best thing, because look, I'm never, and I've said this to a lot of people. I've never found a politician that I agree with 100%. I don't agree with myself 100%, so I end up changing my mind. So you won't agree with anybody 100%. Line up the things that are most important to you, and then look at the candidates who are most in line with the things that are most important to you, and go with that. But the main thing is look and see what they stand for.
Yeah, and I'll go far as to say that when you're voting, if you look and you just see people's name and you don't know one, if you haven't done any research, I think you do more harm than good than to check that name. Just leave it blank, because you could be getting someone that definitely doesn't need to be there, especially sometimes when they're the first person listed or the last person. We'll just check that. It's just routine to do it. And God forbid it be somebody that you really just like, this is not the person for this job. We've sealed it for them. So that's one that if I don't know, I don't take a guess there. I just leave it out, but I really do try to do my research. But somebody brought it up. Sometimes you have 200 people on the thing. You can't remember them all unless you take in the list of somebody that's endorsed.
Realize you don't have to fill in all the blanks.
Or if those who have the time, if you have the time, we live in this whole influencer society. Take the time, do the research, and publicize the research that you've done to create a shortcut for somebody who might be following you to actually be informed when they make a decision, so they don't have to leave anything blank.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and when you do that, it's important not just to tell people vote for this person.
The why.
Tell them why you think that person is good. And the same thing, if it's someone you think, let's say there are 3 candidates or 4 candidates out there, and you know one of them, and you know that person is bad news, you can do a negative endorsement too, to say, I don't know these other 3, but I know this one is bad. I know this person is bad for this position. So, you can do a negative endorsement. It's okay to inform people based on your knowledge, but be prepared to tell them why you feel the way you feel. So they're not judging you, they're judging the facts.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Watch.
Not just not saying bad, but saying here are the reasons. Sometimes you can't just take what people say, and I'll say that because a lot of times, I'll just use judges in general, they can't defend themselves. They can't, if somebody says something bad, negative, they can't come back and say, no, you lied on me, that's not it. And I saw a lot of that going on a lot of times when we're in situations where you heard all the negatives on different types of people that are practicing, but they can't speak for themselves. So we got to be those voices sometimes when they can't speak.
Why? Why should I bother with all this? This sounds like a lot y'all putting on me. A lot I gotta research.
You see that everything
my vote don't even
we
count.
talked about family murder. We talked about the 5th Amendment. We talked about, and although the laws are never what they could be better. And if you don't vote, they're going to stay the same way. We talked about, one of the episodes we talked about. What was that?
The new constitutional amendment.
Yeah, the new constitutional amendments. Bottom line, we could have impacted that with our vote, but so many people, 10% of the people go out to vote, and we're stuck with those rules. Us 10% that are in there of the 90 that didn't come. So no, it's important. Voting matters. It matters. If you don't know anything else, just look what's going on today. Votes matter.
And sitting out elections matter.
Amen.
Who sit out. I used to tell people all the time, if you didn't vote in the election, don't complain about the people who are in office, because you had a chance to change and you chose not to.
To do that.
Whatever you were doing, and especially now in many states, they have early voting. you have 2 weeks or 5 days or some. It's not just election day now, and so you still have people want. I'm waiting till election day, and so then they have a flat tire, or they have and they don't end up voting. Take advantage of the early voting. Get it done early. So I want to try to do it. A lot of times I do it very first day. Just wait. If I die the next day, I got my vote in. I'm gonna impact what y'all gonna live with. So I mean, it's really that serious. And we have the opportunity that people fought, bled, and died to give us a chance to vote. It's worth us going in to try and make sure we got the right people in office and look at our own internal criteria to say, I want to know what type of person is this? Like you said, what's the character of the person I'm going to vote for? How do they treat other people? What are their values? What are the things that's most important to them? If those things don't line up with what I'm trying to do, then no, you ain't getting my vote.
Yeah, you just said something that struck a point. Ever since I was going to court from speeding tickets, all of that stuff, I always had a problem when you go in there, they're so mean to you most of the time. Almost all the judges, they're just mean. I wonder why do people do that. And I think we don't have to be mean. We can treat everybody with dignity and respect. And I think that's something to look at. And one other thing, now a lot of the judges, you can see them on the what do you call it? Go online to see them, and I was always wondering about the ones that don't go online. I'm always suspect of it. I'm like, what do you don't want us to? Yeah, what do you want us not to know? So I think that's one of the criteria I actually look for. And the bottom line, and I'll ask questions about that because I'm like, what's up? What's up? Are you not coming to work or what? What's the deal?
We got open courts. You can go down to the courthouse and see it for yourself.
I live in Montgomery County. I want to know what's going on in Harris.
and again, all around the country, as you look at these things, you can take these same principles and apply to your folks in Nebraska. And it's not just judges. Remember, it's every political office. Everybody's going to be on that ballot because they work for you. And just think, you're hiring somebody without an interview, or you're relegating you got this employee that's coming in to work for you, and you don't want to take the time to interview them, so you let somebody else decide who your employee is going to be. As you say, make that make sense. So it's important. We need to do it. Any closing comments?
How do we hold politicians accountable?
I'm going to tell you,
voting,
the vote, but it's more than that. From my time in D.C., one of the things I figured out that moves politicians, the number one job of any elected official, and most elected officials, is to get reelected. And the question is, who are the people who are going to vote? And of the people who are going to vote, how many of them like what I'm doing? If I get a lot of people not liking what I'm doing, I figure they're going to vote me out. So if you don't complain, your voice is just no. If you complain to a point that you want to pick up the phone and call their office, that's giving more weight. If you're going to write a letter, that's giving more weight unless it's a form letter. If it's a form letter, you get 1,000 form letters, and then you get 100 people who write individual letters. Those individual letters are the ones they're going to look at because they think anytime anyone will take a time to write out a letter, they're going to go and vote, and they will vote me out. So there are ways you can influence them, like now, while they're in office, and then if their influence has not worked, when it's time to vote them out, hold them accountable for what they told you they're going to do, and I like to say, compare what they told you were going to do and what they actually did. If the two don't line up, give somebody else a chance. So, another episode of Politics, Law, and Life. We think this story has found its verdict, but again, look at your local area, make decisions that will favor you and yours.
Most important, vote. Please vote.
And subscribe. Thank you.
Politics, Law, and Life, where every story finds its verdict.